Welcome to episode 7 of my enrolled agent career journey. If you're new here, I am your host, Timalyn Bowens, America's favorite EA. And in today's episode, I have a very, very special guest. Now, you may have seen this person on the speaker circuit or maybe online when you've been looking up information about your cybersecurity. If you're thinking, why would I be looking at my cybersecurity? You definitely need to stay tuned for this episode. But the reason that I brought this guest on is because as a lifetime learner myself, I can appreciate someone who breaks down information that's hard to understand so that anybody can understand it, grasp it, retain it, and then be able to share it with others. So, my guest today is also a professor full time at the University of Pittsburgh teaching information systems. They are also a serial entrepreneur and a third generation firm owner. So, without any further ado, please welcome tonight's guest, Mr. Brad Messner, EA.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Brad, thank you for being here. Um, like I said in the intro, I'm excited about you being here because anybody that can take something, let's forget tax law, anything complicated and make somebody grasp it is somebody that I am going to kind of gravitate to because I admire that about people when they break it down so like we're all on the same level of understanding with it and we can have that conversation. Um, so for context, like I said, you're one of America's tax experts as an EA, but with information systems and cybersecurity, you all, I had my WISP. I understood I had important information that I needed to safeguard for my clients. But sitting in one of Brad's classes talking about cybersecurity made me grasp it in such a different way that I seriously was contemplating in the class. I was like, do I have enough security? Is this worth it for me to do anymore? But that just goes to show you like how well of a teacher you are, Brad, and being able to again just make it relatable and be like, oh snap, this is a little bit more serious than I thought. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
No, I appreciate having the chance to chat. And even to add on to your little wisp story there, I think I think a good way for us to look at it in this industry is if a client comes to you, you're not just giving them back a blank 1040 and saying, here's your template, fill it out. But that's how a
Mhm.
lot of people are treating their security plan. They grab a template from somewhere and don't think they need to do any additional work. So, and that's one of the reasons I really appreciated you reaching out because I could see in your eyes during the presentation that, oh my gosh, there is a lot that goes into this.
Yes. And I think that was a few years ago because we were both teaching in Florida. I've been in the industry, even working at a firm way bigger than what I have now since 2011. So again, for me to grasp it in that way is like, you're an amazing teacher.
Oh, well, thank
So
you. I appreciate it.
you are welcome. I want to get to your EA journey and what that's been like and how you got here. But for some of our listeners, we have people who are seasoned enrolled agents, we have people who are new to the industry, and some that are contemplating whether or not they want to join. I realized that I did one of those things where I call it talking in taxonese by saying a wisp. If you don't mind, will you explain like what a WISP is and why we as tax professionals are required?
Yeah, absolutely. So a WISP stands for Written Information Security Plan. And that's pretty much what it is as individuals who work in financial services, we have access to so much information. The phrase I usually use to a little bit of scare people is we have enough information that we could truly ruin people's lives. And the IRS appreciates that, and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, understands that. So over the course of the last 2 decades, they've put regulations in place to make sure that we're held responsible and that we've put security in place to protect that information we're entrusted with. So the written information security plan is our requirement in this industry to make sure that we have thought through, planned, and executed the security protocols that we need.
Thank you. And it worked for me. It opened my eyes and scared me a little bit. So, Brad, before you became an expert in things concerning the WISP, before you became the professor with information systems, how did you find out about the EA designation and what prompted that decision to sit for the exam?
So my story for the enrolled agent is probably very different than most. I'm a third generation firm owner. So I actually started in 1996. I
Okay.
had actually started 2 months earlier than my sister did when she started, at the age of 16, just helping out at the firm, doing some of the more basic returns. And then things continued. And when my father passed in 2009, my sister, myself, and my mother all became the third generation of owners. And we really struggled for the first couple years because none of us really were expecting that quick of a transition to occur. So I
Mhm.
was out in the industry trying really desperately to figure out, like, what can we do? What can we attach to get a good resource and help? And we really tried for years. And a couple years later, around 2014, it's a wild story. I donated a kidney to a tax client, and during my recovery, I was sitting there like, there has to be some way I can make myself better as a tax professional. And I started
Mhm.
searching, and I found the enrolled agent. And I was actually shocked that I'd been in the industry since at that point almost 20 years and I'd never heard of it. So I researched a little bit and I'm like, no, this is exactly the path I need to go. This is what will help me better and improve the services I can offer to our clients. And during the recovery, I sat down, I researched, and I scheduled all three of my exams right in a row. And probably within 3 months, I had them passed. So it was
Oh,
a
wow.
wild, quick journey. I just saw it and I knew that was really what I needed to make our firm better and improve for our clients.
That I need a moment to process. So, well, this is it's interesting. So, when I've heard and read that you're a third generation firm owner, because you are an EA, not that that's not cool, but I always just assumed you were third generation EA firm owner. I didn't realize that
No,
you got the credential that much
yeah,
later.
I am the first EA in our firm's history.
Wow. And I have always felt that I like love my clients too, genuinely, but then I didn't know that you found out about the credential while you were recovering from donating a kidney.
Told you it's a wild story.
Indeed. So, with that, I'm assuming you hadn't done any type of representation services after you became an enrolled agent and you'd already had all of that, I'm assuming, tax prep experience under your belt. How did that kind of, did the services that you offer switch in your firm after you became an EA?
So prior to being an EA, again, I didn't even know it existed. To be quite
Mm-hmm.
frank, I didn't even know what the term representation meant. So a client would come in with a letter and I'd be like, hold on. And I'd pick up the phone. And while the client was there, we would jointly call the IRS and work through it. That was the old school way. That's kind of what, um, but after I became an enrolled agent, it really did open my eyes to the possibilities of, holy crap, there's a lot of people out there who have these complex needs, who have these,
Mm-hmm.
and even in the local community, I just started really pushing out like, hey, we specialize in tax. Like it gave me that little bit of confidence that I could push out like, no, we know tax. And I will never forget my first official representation client. And I know there are going to be people who absolutely hate this story, but
Uh-oh.
it was an older gentleman who was retired and truly just living on Social Security,
Okay.
very, very low income. He had been in a real estate deal from several years prior. And it sounds like a bad joke. It was a partnership. It was him, a farmer, and a lawyer and an accountant as this partnership. And he just at one point was under the assumption the partnership just dissolved. He never really understood it. He
Oh
shows
no.
up with this huge tax bill, close to like $75,000. And he's just walking into the office, never seen us, never even worked with us. He just had been referred through the local community. And I sat with him. It took us about 18 to 20 months to get the whole thing resolved. And it was the
Mhm.
first case, so I didn't even realize that was something people charged for at that time. So we didn't even charge him because we just felt so bad for him. But he was a farmer, and even though he had handed the farm off to his kids, he showed up one day with a whole box of steaks and that because he just wanted to express his way of saying thank you. But he also didn't realize, I think, how much it meant to me to be able to work with him as kind of my first representation client as well.
That's really cool. That is a story that we see so often though in the industry when we have different business entities that aren't actually dissolved. We're like, oh, it's a partnership. I don't pay tax at the partnership level, so we don't have anything to file. And it's like, it's not quite how it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been pricing some with me being in Louisville and all the farms around. I've been pricing like buying a whole cow, buying deer. So like when you said a box of steaks and stuff, I was like, you may have got part of your fee.
No, yeah, and in the end, to me, it was seeing just the appreciation that he
Hmm.
expressed and knowing that he could have truly found anyone that didn't have that understanding, that didn't
Yeah.
have the know-how that could have actually made his situation worse.
So from your story, I do want to talk about two things.
Mhm.
One, the internet's great, it's cool, technology is amazing, but I see, I want to speak for me, kind of this recurring theme that, you need to work remote, you can work with people all over the world, which as an enrolled agent, you can, because it's the highest credential the IRS awards tax professionals. I have clients in Italy, Baghdad, cool. But I think people have lost the power of serving their local community and still having an office that people have access to. Because if I heard you correctly, your first case walked in the door from a referral. They didn't find you on the internet. Um, so, and again, each has its place, but for your firm, that being your first case, have you all decided to still have like a physical presence where people can access you that way? Or are you a remote virtual office?
So, and it's a wild split with us because I am extremely technology heavy and focused, and in a lot of
Imagine that.
when you have that in-person firm, a lot of times you collect or the non-tech clients kind of gravitate towards you because you still have a physical presence.
Hmm.
But we operate very much in kind of like a dual mode where we have about 70% of our clients, I would say, physically come into our office. And then about 30%, to your point, are all over. We have some over in South Korea, we have some in Ireland, and then
Cool.
I have a lady who literally is right across the highway from us. I have never physically met the woman in my life. she she actually was referred to us through a social media just posting. Someone said, "Oh, hey, you should go check them out." And she thought it was a scam at first because we were literally right around the corner from her. But no, we very much try to keep a nice balance. I will say the difference I feel is that in-person client, you tend to get like that strong, like personal connection or relationship to. Like
Mhm.
I've shared in the past, I get texts from our farmers when they birth their first calves in the spring. I have people who are just so happy. It's not a matter of, oh, hey, did you have a kid this year? It's like they bring in the pictures. They want to share and they want to have that relationship. But then I'm a night owl. Nothing makes me happier than sitting there at like 1 a.m. and being able to just quietly push out a return that came in during the day and do it completely distraction free, do it just right on the spot and get things turned around to them. So I very much appreciate both sides. But
Mhm.
pre-COVID, we actually did have scheduled appointments where people would come and meet with us in person. Um, COVID, of course, changed a lot of that. And we now do most of the in person by drop off. And then we meet and sit with them and discuss when they pick up. It was a hard transition for me because I really liked having that individual time. Even though I am the
Okay.
tech guy, I still like having that personal touch. But over time, we've found ways to stay connected and keep some of those ties with our clients.
Okay, cool. That's always interesting to hear people's stories with that too. So during COVID, I wasn't affected as much. I actually made more money because I was already virtual.
Mhm.
So it was a win for me because people couldn't go in for tax appointments. But when I quickly learned about myself, because the CPA firm that I worked at was huge, so we didn't do tax returns with people present. And I didn't like the 1040 I did was mine, or like when we'd have clients' children, something like that. But they also had like K1s. So even simple returns, people would be like, "Oh, like I'll meet you." I could not do a return with somebody there. Like, but you have all this experience. I was like, but it's not the way I was taught.
Well,
So,
and there's that pressure because even if you know, like you, let's say you schedule a 2 hour appointment with someone, you know it's not going to take
mhm,
that long. There's still that pressure with them being right there. So,
agreed.
but yeah, I grew up with that appointment method. So, like to me,
Mhm.
when COVID hit, that was like the majority of how we operated. And
Okay.
we found a nice, cool transition with technology even during COVID. The first time we got that message from a client, they called and they're like, I know we can't come in because PA did have some pretty strict rules. Could you meet us behind the gas station and we'll sign for? I'm like, no, we're not doing this. So we did find a way. We installed a texting system for when
Okay.
people pull into our parking lot. They were able to text us. We had an automated system that would then notify us of their files. It would actually highlight a little spotlight right above their parking spot to tell them when it was clear to come in. We really tried to meet those clients where they needed to be while still trying to maintain that same relationship.
So as I'm sitting here in amazement, because I was gonna say, wow, that was like the pediatrician's office. I
It,
already forgot I was talking to a tech person. I was like, how did you implement all that?
But it was what we had to do to keep our business running
Mhm.
because as a lot of firms were migrating to virtual, our client base that are a lot of the in-person, our client base just are not that tech savvy group that truly wants that type of operation.
Yeah, and they still deserve to work with somebody who knows and
Absolutely.
offers good customer service. So I just want to highlight that too because I think there's like this push everybody go virtual, and there's a need for people who don't want to do anything virtual. They may not be a good fit for my firm. They come visit you.
And I mean, and
But
we get calls every year, and a lot of them we end up referring to Vita. But Vita
mhm,
is now, I mean, if you don't call by like that first week of February to schedule, Vita's full.
mhm,
And a lot of times it's not that they don't want to pay, it's that they want to be able to sit and talk to someone. there's still a
Mhm.
huge population that is just very used to that model.
Yes, I agree. Um, oh, so the other thing I did when you were talking about your first or how you used to handle clients that had tax problems. So I'm not trying to be devil's advocate here. You just said something. And for our listeners who may be newer to this industry or newer to the EA credential, I just want to bring like clarification. Um, because I'm not calling anybody out by name, this is just a general statement. There are groups of people that will say, well, anybody can do tax resolution.
I
So
see that all the time.
it's like you have to be careful with words. So with that, only a CPA, tax attorney, or enrolled agent can do tax representation.
Correct.
Resolution is more the paperwork. Representation is a person like standing in on the taxpayer's behalf. So when you were saying you handled cases and you would have to call, and I always tell people nobody has time for three-way calling anymore. This is in the 90s. I just wanted to speak to that if you don't have the credential yet, there are ways you can help, but that's not called representation.
Correct. And
Um,
I would even throw in, you still need to have such a solid understanding of how all of the representation side works, because
mhm.
even though your services aren't classified as that resolution, I mean that representation, you still could be putting the clients in jeopardy by some of the services and some of the suggestions you make. And I will be very honest, that I didn't realize till after the fact, um, that it was even a thing. We were just trying to help our clients, but I look back and I think, oh, it really could have been a lot scarier if we.
Yes.
So yeah, so while that was the journey I followed, that by no means would be the path that I would ever recommend or suggest, because we really didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to help our clients as as my father had passed and we were picking up the reins.
Yeah. And I do want to say too, like I don't think everybody is intentionally being malicious in the way like we try to help clients. But I do think that it's a disservice to clients when you realize that there is a way that you can help them better and you just intentionally don't do it. Um,
But no, to
yeah.
your point, I see a lot of posts on social media and these, what I call these pop-up programs, where they
Mhm.
try to teach this type of knowledge or service without having some sort of credential to be authorized or back it up. And that is very scary, because you can't learn everything you need to know in that 1 or 2 days either.
Yeah, you definitely can. And I always tell people it's the same as when you learned how to drive. Like you can pass the exam. Now in hindsight, I can say 20 years ago when I got my driver's license, I did not know how to drive. And like I understood why my parents would be like gripping the dashboard and stuff. Fresh new EA, you don't need to go find the person that owes $100,000 or they're being audited. Um, yeah, technology and social media is great for learning and information, but it's also a scary place for misinformation as well.
Well, and I think sometimes a lot of people like that. Oh, this feels like an easier path to get to the point, either to
Mhm.
generate income, or maybe they're trying to genuinely help a larger community or base, but still in the bigger picture, that's going to harm those individuals if you don't go through that proper process. And I didn't realize how involved the whole process was until I truly was on this side of it.
Yeah. I am when I found out about the EA designation, I said I wanted to do it because I kind of had an understanding of representation was again, until you actually get into it and get there, you don't. But what I realized is I had this client who was a sales rep who had this tax issue. And I was like, I'm in my own way helping him. because he does have to almost babysit on the call. And like now his stress levels are going up, and like I need to just knock this exam out and go find somebody that's doing this so I can learn how to do it to better serve my clients. Um, so in your firm now, you said you do still have where you're working with people locally, you do have people who are working with you remotely. Would you say that most of what you do now is still tax prep, or do you have like a nice representation amount that you do as well?
So we are very much all service. We do most of our income is generated through tax preparation.
Okay.
Um, we have a very nice. My true real passion is more on the tax planning side. That's really like if you want to see me smile, that's the direction you go. Being that I'm the only enrolled agent in the firm, we do require all of our preparers to participate in the AFSP program, just to again have an expectation of what education they have to take every year. But being that I'm the only enrolled agent, I try to limit the amount of work or cases I bring on, just so
Hmm.
that it doesn't overload like the rest of the firm.
That
So
makes sense.
we're not heavy on it. Um, I enjoy the final stages where we get that nice clean resolution. I get just my personality. I get that anxiety when we send something off and it becomes that waiting game.
Hmm.
I just that gives me anxiety. So it's not the best fit. I like the ones where we can kind of get a quicker resolution too.
That makes sense. Just for our listeners again, who maybe they're looking at the EA credential and they're not going to be able to take it this cycle, but they want to kind of raise the bar for their expectation with learning. You mentioned that you have your preparers participate in the AFSP program. Do you mind explaining what that acronym is?
Yeah, so AFSP stands for the Annual Filing System Program. And it's just an offering that the IRS provides for people who want to go through a more rigorous education requirement and just kind of set themselves up beyond just saying, "Hey, I can do a tax return." It shows that
Hmm.
they're committing to a higher standard of education and understanding. There's two paths you could go with it. Anyone attempting for it now would have to take an annual exam. I think that's what scares people the most. But honestly, our employees never complain about the exam because it is that nice refresher. And that's, I think, the benefit of the AFSP program. It kind of pushes, I won't say forces, it kind of pushes that refresher into everyone. Because just because you don't do a whole lot of rentals, it's still going to have enough rental in there to make sure that you're on your game if something along that comes up. So I like the
Hmm.
fact that it just kind of it reserves itself as that refresher opportunity. But again, I very much view it as I would love in our firm for it to be that step into an enrolled agent program to kind of encourage and push to like, oh, there's a whole lot more out there.
Yeah.
And that's what I would love to see that AFSP kind of become is, oh, this was really exciting. Like I learned a lot doing this. What could come next? And then that's where I just slide in that, well, you could be an enrolled agent next.
Yeah. So thank you for explaining that. I and also mentioning like I agree. I think it's a good starting ground. It's not a oh I've done I don't say the bare minimum, but I've done all that's required of me. Um, but that might be I'm gonna go ahead and throw you in there with me. I think you might be a little bit of a tax nerd like me, Brad, where we get excited about the
I'm not sure
classes
the
and
little
things.
bit is that qualifying.
Well, I mentioned it to somebody before, and I think they took it as like an insult. And I'm like, I pride myself on being a tax nerd because even if I'm not going to do that type of return, there are some things that are just intriguing. Like I would never touch that type of return, but I want to learn about it.
No, I thankfully it's turned circle, but I had never done a trust or estate return in my life. But I was sitting there one day, I'm like, you know what? I'd really like to just know how. And I took hours of education on trust and estates. And the next thing you know, we're now getting bombarded with them. And I don't have to put things on hold. I don't have to just hope I'm doing things right. I feel so confident because I just pursued a path that was of interest and was exciting to me. And it just has added so much more confidence as I approach those topics now.
That's the cool thing that I've noticed in my, I'll say, short career in comparison to yours. But I feel like whatever I took the time to study and learn to do, it's like it organically started coming to me. So some stuff where I'm like, "Ah, I never want to do this. I have to be careful. Like, okay, I better start reading, taking these classes because this type of client is going to come to me.
Yeah.
Um, but we've talked about your journey kind of as a firm owner, that transition, you becoming an EA. I mentioned earlier that you are a serial entrepreneur. I first met you in person, saw you in person at a conference. How did you go from Brad Messner, EA, running this firm, to Brad Messner teaching EAs all over the country?
No, so again, my mind, I don't feel like ever stops. So I'm
Hmm.
always trying to do something to either learn, do something better. I'm a problem fixer. So if I see a problem, I have to find a way to fix it or I can't sleep. And one of the struggles that we've had in our firm is our entire firm is made up of part-time people. So there's not a single employee in our firm who is full time. So all of us have full time jobs that we work with. And for years, I worked in the technology space. And I was sitting there one day thinking, oh, like there's so much crossover here. Like there has to be a chance. And there was a national org that I just pounded every single year trying to get into speak at their conference. Like, look, like security is so important. We have to. And then in 2019, the IRS opened up cybersecurity topics to be qualifying for continuing education. Um, the day it opened, I emailed the organization and said, "Can I please come this year?" And it wasn't even their call for speakers. It wasn't even, and they wrote back and said, "Yes, you can finally come." And
You were
it was
ahead of the curve.
exactly, and it was just wild because then the next year COVID hit, and all of a sudden technology became a huge topic in this industry.
Hmm.
And then security came in following um, following COVID. Then we got hit with what I call the automation wave or the workflow wave, where all of these new tools came in focused on how can we automate this industry. And then we
Hmm.
moved into the AI wave, which we're kind of riding right now. And it just the amount of poor or low quality education that's out there is, to me, it just hinders the industry. So I've just ramped up the amount of education that I've been putting out there, connecting with different orgs or just trying to push out on my own because it really is something that we need to have more exposure to in this industry. And then you kind of mentioned the serial entrepreneur side. I can't know a problem exists and not try to fix it. So the problem with educating more and more people about security is then people now know more and the questions come up with, well, how can we implement this? How can we
Hmm.
actually make this happen? I know I have to do this. So how do we actually do it? So I started having enough people reaching out, like, we don't know what to do. And even around that same time, the FTC kept delaying their new safeguards rule for security because there weren't enough people in the industry to help accountants and tax professionals. So then I saw that problem. So I launched Financial Guardians to try to then help people with the execution side. So it very much has been like this growth path, but education to me is just that first step in getting that understanding out there. And then you really have to move. Education is a selfish journey if you don't strive to then pass that on or improve something around you. And that's very much my focus is as I learn and become better, I then want to help everyone around me.
I never thought about it that way. Being a selfish journey. I guess it kind of is. You just hoard
And
it
there's
all in
nothing
for
wrong with that.
yourself.
There's nothing, as you said, like there's nothing wrong with people wanting more and educating more, but to me,
Mhm.
that value really comes through when you can use that then to make life better for someone else.
Yeah. So you mentioned financial guardian. That's the one that I'm most familiar with. So educating people, helping them implement what they've learned. Can you speak a little bit more to what all, I guess, is available with financial guardian for other tax professionals?
Yeah, so Financial Guardians kind of has a dual mode version. We have some where you can just reach out and say, "Hey, I need help with that written information security plan. Can you partner with us, make sure that it's viable for our office? Or we have these weird one-off needs in our office. Can you help us figure them out?" Or what has been growing in popularity lately has been we have a monthly membership program. I know everyone has subscriptions. Ours has been around much longer than most, so I don't consider myself in that community mode. But we very much, and we have bi-monthly support calls, so people can hop on, ask tech questions, security questions, AI, anything related to tech. You can hop on, and we're there as a group supporting, answering questions, and so forth. We do an hour of continuing education qualifying credits every month. We have about almost 100 different resources, templates, documents to help you improve your security plan, your non-disclosures, anything like that. So we really have a nice community of software reviews, hardware reviews. We're actually this month we're launching 2 additional spin-offs, one being Guardian Mail, where we are going to be managing physical mail for people. So that if you don't
Oh,
want
wow.
to use your home address, or if you just want to hop in your car and go and don't have to worry, you can actually forward your mail to us. We will collect it securely. We will scan it into a secure portal for you, manage all of that. Because a lot of feedback we were getting from client or professionals was, I feel tied to my desk. There's still so many things that come by mail that I don't feel that I can just go and leave for 3 months. So that was one thing we're doing. And to me, the one I'm most excited about is one Guardian Trust. And we've seen it. We saw it a lot this tax season where you're working with certain vendors and you have no idea what those vendors are doing. You have no idea what safeguards they've put in place. You have no idea how stable their environment is. And you reach out to them, and what do you usually get? You get like the little 2 thumbs up, like everything's great. But
Right.
we are required to be doing in-depth reviews and audits of all of our vendors. And I don't know a single firm that's actually doing that. So Guardian Trust will just be something that someone can subscribe to, that they get the push out. We will be doing 2 or 3 vendors a month,
Okay.
and you'll just get updated as those vendors change or shift or have updates. So we're really just trying to be that resource for whatever
Mhm.
information people are looking for security in our industry.
Yeah, I think that was one of the points in your presentation where I probably missed like the next 10 slides because I was like, who all am I working with? Like, I know I don't have. And I was like, oh, shoot, is my stuff even together?
There was I sat in on a presentation like a year or two ago, and the presenter was so proud of themselves that their intake process had like 20 different apps they used. Like the data went from here to over here to here to here. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, your data is now sitting in 20 different places. How do you keep track of what those 20 different vendors are doing with it? And that to me was like, no, this is an area we really, really need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And the FTC agreed because almost right around the corner from that presentation, the FTC safeguards rule came out that said we have to manage our vendors better.
See, so if our audience is paying attention, anything that happens in this arena, you might want to be following Brad because he's going to say it a little bit before the FTC
Well,
comes out with the rule.
and again, I try to be a resource. So even if you do just like go to brad.tax or cybersecurity.tax, there's a free update that you can get. And I just send them out usually once or every other week, once a week or every other week. And it's just, here's what's changed. Here's where there's been some data breaches. Here's what's going on in the industry. So completely free, just a nice resource so that you can at least stay caught up on what is going on security wise in the industry too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. I do for the people watching. It's scrolling across. It is Brad.tax. And what did you say the other one was?
Just cybersecurity.tax. That takes you right to all of the security related items.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure that also gets in the show notes. Brad, I appreciate you being here. You're out here saving the world for tax
Oh, God.
professionals.
I appreciate you elevating the credential because we need more qualified and educated people out there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I do what I can. Try anyway. Um I just wanted, and it definitely is something it sounds like you didn't have as well. I want to be a resource for people interested in this credential and be what I didn't have.
No, that
Like you said.
we are in
Um,
such need of that resource that aspiring or even new enrolled agents can reach out to, connect with, to validate and improve themselves.
mhm. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing your story, your transparency. So for the listeners, I didn't know what I was doing as soon as I became an EA. You heard it from an expert, Brad. He didn't know what he was doing when he first became an EA, but we got in there, stuck it out, built community, and got it done. Um, for our listeners, Brad,
Mhm.
if there is one thing in your journey of being an enrolled agent that you could do all over again, what would that be?
Honestly, you just hinted on it. If I could have changed something, it would have been finding or partnering or finding that mentor as I was starting that path and journey and as I had moved into being an enrolled agent. I felt very much alone and by myself, and I felt
Mm-hmm.
completely not confident in a lot of the initial offerings I was doing because I didn't really have that person to work with. So I would absolutely suggest find that mentor, find that resource or partner that you can connect with to help you build that confidence and to help you improve your accuracy.
Gotcha. And I will say, I did not pay Brad to say that. I do also do have a free resource and group available, how to start an EA firm. You can join that in my email list at americasfavoriteea.com.
Oh,
Um,
I wish I'd had that 10 years ago.
right, like it literally started YouTube. Everything started because I was like, what would I want if I had to do this all over again? So I again appreciate you helping me build out something that I would have wanted because I felt alone. I when I learned about the designation, saw EAs online, but I didn't have anybody to call or to email or who had written an article about different things I could do in my practice. So I appreciate it because now you've made my resources that much better.
No,
Sharing your
anything
story.
I can do to help.
I appreciate that. Well, you all, you know where to find Brad at brad.tax. He didn't ask for this. I would say follow him on LinkedIn as well. I enjoy the content that he shares and learning about different things. Like I said, he's a little ahead of the curve with what FTC is going to give us. But I appreciate you all listening. If you have any feedback for the show, please leave it down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will be back next Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern.